The voice of health, freedom, and liberty, Robert Scott Bell.
This is definitely the week where I'm inspired to be happy. Actually happy, Don. Which I usually am. I mean, people describe me as happy, smiles a lot. But then I get stories about neurotoxic degradation, autoimmune diseases. And we're not talking in people that are 70, 80, 90 years of age, but in children and young adults. And it's not that I stop being happy, but I am simultaneously happy for those like the kids of Marlon in Detroit who are just smiling and happy and eating better, and they're not going to go down the same road that I went down as a child, but realize there are percentage-wise way more kids and young adults that haven't a clue about the things we talk about yet here on the Robert Scott Bell Show, and maybe, how would we say it, destined for a life of autoimmune diseases and even neurological degradation. And that's got me, kind of a little sad as we start the show today, quite honestly, here, Don.
Yeah, well, it does happen, and it coincidentally has actually made the news recently that there's a 26-year-old guy that not everybody may be familiar with, but a lot of us that have been involved in some of the pop culture stuff over time are familiar with the name Jack Osbourne.
Yeah, well, we use his dad Ozzy's music occasionally for Bumper, do we not?
Well, we have to. Yeah. We have to pay homage to a rock and roll icon like Ozzy Osbourne. But this is his 26-year-old son, and some people may have seen the TV show, the quote reality TV show that they had called The Osbournes. It was on MTV. But 26 years old, just 2 weeks after the birth of his first child. Just announced a couple of weeks ago that he's been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
26 years old. Now, I usually see this more in women than in men, yet here Jack Osbourne, son of rock and roll legend Ozzy Osbourne and Sharon Osbourne. And you can bet that what Ozzy did, because as a rock and roller, he was well known for his penchant in alcohol and meds, and that for certain have impacted the next generation in Jack in his 20s. I mean, why would somebody in their 20s have a neurological degradation disease? Now, we would ask that, but there's evidence here that modern medicine is absolutely, and the minions and the doctors that are licensed to promote it are absolutely clueless on this issue. And this is something that, as I say, it's just upsetting every time I see it and hear it. And it's not just neurodegradation diseases. We're also dealing with diseases of skeletal degradation as well, with the rheumatoid arthritis. That's also autoimmune diseases. But why autoimmunity? Why is the immune system seemingly attacking itself, especially in young people? I'd say that in everybody, in old people too, Super Don, because I don't accept this garbage that aging is disease, right? Aging is decay. But that's me. I'm a stubborn guy on that front. I've been down that belief system. Didn't work because I was aging fast. And in fact, I got my old age diseases out of the way early and decided to reverse it early on as well. But we do. Do we have the audio clip of CNN where they're talking about Jack Osbourne on this thing?
Yeah, this is just kind of just a setup of a little piece that they did about Jack and what's going on.
Ozzy Osbourne's son, Jack, has multiple sclerosis. He's 26 years old. He told People magazine he was diagnosed just 2 weeks after his fiancée gave birth to their daughter. He told Hello magazine he was angry, he was frustrated. Then he realized getting mad would only make things worse, so that's not what he was going to do. He says that he has a motto that is adapt and overcome.
You adapt and overcome. It's an interesting thing, adapt and overcome, because we've talked so much about the adaptation syndrome, right? That we adapt for survival, and it isn't necessarily an optimal functioning adaptation, but it's an adaptation to allow us to continue on. And let's say if you have cells that have become so corrupted in your body because they're so toxic and you're so nutritionally deficient that these cells become just so aberrant that the immune system looks at them and goes, who the hell are you? What are you? And then, of course, its job is to what? Then intercede on your behalf to protect you from that which is not you anymore. And that's what we're seeing here. And yet modern dunderheaded medicine still can't see it. And people like Jack, of course, are going to go out and probably raise money for the American Autoimmune Disease MS Association. who don't understand that we're dealing with a disease of toxicity and deficiency, and that autoimmunity is what necessarily happens when your cells are so corrupted that they're no longer perceived as you by your immune system. But this is something, am I making it up? Are these doctors really that dumb, or can they live down to that standard?
Well, there are times when we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but unfortunately, in this CNN piece, they brought on their TV doctor.
Uh-oh.
And I forget, Elizabeth Cohen, I think, is the senior medical correspondent for CNN. And so, they brought her on as an expert to explain to people what MS is and what it is that we know about it. And this is what she had to say.
It's a neurological disease where your body's immune system actually attacks itself. It attacks the lining, if you will, of nerves. Okay. And so people can be fine for a period of time and then can have these terrible attacks. Okay. And it's sometimes hereditary. I mean, it's more common in certain families. Mm-hmm. But for most people, it's just this random thing. You didn't do anything to bring it on. It just happens, and we're not exactly sure why.
No, you dunderheaded doctor, Elizabeth Cohen. Is she a doctor, really?
I think she is.
Oh, my. Did she say it was random?
I don't think they'd bring on somebody off the street, but you never know.
It sounded like it. But of course, they're trained to know nothing. They're trained to be stupid. They're trained to say it's idiopathic. We don't know why it happens. I'm an idiot.
Getting MS is like being struck by lightning.
Yeah, it's a random act. I'm telling you, this is the victim state of consciousness that is endemic to the medical profession, and it is not worthy of your worship. Never has it been. I don't want you to worship homeopaths, much less allopaths. But they come right out there and admit it. We don't know why you're sick. So why do you even go to a doctor when you have MS? Doesn't that double down on stupidity?
You would think. And I mean, how long have we heard about MS in the news? And you've got, telethons and drives and everything having to do with MS. And you would think after all of these years, and who knows how much money has been, given to these researchers to try and find a cure for MS, you think at some point they would have figured out what might be causing MS, don't you think?
No, but if they found the cause, then there would not be more perpetual research. And this is another one of those research rat holes, like the search for the cure for cancer, which is not a search for the cure for cancer, the search for the cure for AIDS, which is not a search for the cure of AIDS because they're claiming it's something that it isn't. And now the search for the cure of autoimmune diseases like MS, which they still can't figure out. Okay, she acknowledges there is an attack on the sheath, if you will, of the nerve cell. We talk about demyelinating diseases. We talk about it extensively with guess who? Advanced Medicine Monday, Dr. Battar, ding, ding, ding. Go back to listen to any of those shows, and you got a doctor who knows what's going on. What do we got here? That Dr. Cohen can't seem to... Did she even mention the word mercury? Did she mention the selenium deficiency? Did she mention the fear of fat also bringing on the neurodegradation diseases and the autoimmune aspect of this? I mean, I think I can lay it out. I mean, I'm not going to be cocky about this, but I think I can get 4th, 5th, and 6th graders to understand what we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's funny that the story came out because, did you see the email that we got from one of our listeners who actually was talking about MS, and he was talking about how he has a coworker that came down with MS and suspected some things that might have contributed to that.
That's right. Yes, Corby Ryder, who wrote to us on the website at robertscottbell.com. We appreciate Corby writing. And by the way, you can do that too, robertscottbell.com, or you can leave us a message at 866-939-BELL, 866-939-2355. Corby says, hello, Robert. A coworker who has MS told me of his possible exposure to PCBs while stationed at Fort McClellan, Alabama. Now, Fort McClellan, by the way, is where they were working on a lot of chemical and biological warfare agents for many, many decades, and they eventually closed it in 1999. But there's still some sort of operation there. So it's closed primarily due to environmental cleanup issues. Let's see. Corby says, I was curious and came across this article dating March 14th, 2011 in Veterans Today, which gives reference to Monsanto dumping tons of PCBs there. You may already be aware of this, but any chance there is to discredit Monsanto, I am there, and I know you for sure are too. There's also a bill in Congress to compensate veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange at the time. That's H.R. 2052. The Fort McClellan Health Registry Act and H.R. 2052 would direct the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to establish a registry of certain veterans who were stationed at Fort McClellan, Alabama. We posted the link in the show notes today, by the way, Don, and thanks for reminding me of that. This definitely relates, because anytime we're dealing with these PCBs, we can do DDT. We also see mercury at play. And these are all toxic heavy metals that deplete your body's mineral resources, defensive resources. That includes and especially selenium, and devastates, because it what we call denudates, make naked the neural fibers, basically rips them, strips them. And then there's no insulation. And of course, you've got raw nerves, you've got non-functional nerves, the misfiring or not firing at all. And at this point, they're looking for what? What will they do? They'll give chemotherapy in these cases to say the immune system is disastrous, it's a danger, it's evil, we've got to shut down your immune system. And when they do that, you, of course, give rise to cancer, uncontrolled cellular proliferation, cells that don't die. There's no apoptosis in cancer cells. They don't die. So we're seeing the combination, and we're seeing the dunderheads of modern medicine making a horrible situation 100,000 times worse by their focal point on intoxicating the body of these people even further.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting if you look at the connections here, where we've got, Jack Osbourne comes down with MS. The doctor on CNN that wants to inform everybody of the situation says just some random thing. They threw a dart at the dartboard and it landed on Jack Osbourne, right?
Yeah.
And here we've got a listener who has a coworker that was at Fort McClellan. And it turns out that at Fort McClellan, and actually I thought this was interesting about Monsanto, that
yes.
there are probably a lot of people that don't realize that Monsanto was in the Agent Orange business at one time. And they were one of the people that were working on manufacturing these PCBs and helping the military make Agent Orange. And so here's this guy that was at Fort McClellan where he was exposed to these PCBs, and what has he got? Multiple sclerosis. How did that happen? If MS is just some random thing, we don't know where it comes from or how people get it, then how did this guy just happen to get MS at Fort McClellan where he was exposed to PCBs that were being manufactured by Monsanto?
Right.
I mean, you're telling me there's no connection there?
Well, I hope that everybody would go pick up Dr. Buttar's book, The 9 Steps to Keep the Doctor Away, because he goes through things like this. We talk about it from time to time, but this story kind of brought it back to light as well. And we talk about the Jack Osbourne issue. And then how many people have I dealt with over the years dealing with other aspects of autoimmune diseases, lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, all related, although with the neurodegradation disease is much more vicious because adult mammals, we talk about human mammals in particular, have a horrific time trying to regenerate neural tissue that has been damaged. Although we have strategies, we have knowledge, I have clinical experience in dealing with these things, and also we can go to the theoretical as well, and we can go to the peer-reviewed literature and assess the properties of certain things, and we can put together a pretty decent strategy in addressing MS and even reversing it.